We are live, Smash Mouth Sports, with our 2021 NFL Draft Recap. We're excited to have our returning guests, Tyler and Allison, back on. They're going to represent their teams as well as give their takes on the rest of the league. We've got Cam Vieira, as always. Let's just get right into it. So let's start with you, Allison. We'll get into your team, the Steelers. Is there any big surprises in the draft?
Personally, I was surprised that they took a tight end in the second round. They obviously addressed their offensive line needs later in the draft, but I didn't necessarily see tight end as a position of need. I definitely felt like they could take one later in the draft, but obviously as the later the draft gets, the less talented the players are. But I just didn't see it as a round two kind of need for Pittsburgh. But obviously, Kevin Colbert did, and Eric Ebron is not going to be around Pittsburgh forever, and he also is not great at blocking. So they needed to, I think that the acquisition of Freiermuth was the most surprising. But also just a position that hey, maybe they do need to kind of address before too long. So they went ahead and did that, and I just think that was the biggest surprise in terms of from my vantage point.
Absolutely, those are all great takes. We'll get into Najee Harris, or as you call him, what'd you call him, Najee Harris?
Najee, that's what it is. Yeah,
that is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to it. Tyler, your boy Zach Wilson, you've been pumping him up all along. Now, are you excited, or are you having a little bit of buyer's remorse? What is your overall take? Because you guys were, I know the Jaguars are the first pick, and they had a lot of picks. They made a lot of moves, but you guys were one of the more talked about teams with Zach Wilson and Elijah Tucker and all the guys. What is your overall feel for the Jets? Do you feel good, or do you feel nervous?
I mean, going into the draft, I knew they were going to go with Zach Wilson. I was fine with that. Again, like we've talked about this before, I was more on the Justin Fields side of things. Didn't roll that way. I am happy with what they did with the first three picks after Wilson, though. Basically, they're like, okay, we got our guy. We got Wilson. If he fails, it's not because of anything we didn't do. So they got him the best zone blocking guard. They got him one of the most dynamic wide receivers, one of the most dynamic running backs in the draft. So they surrounded him with enough weapons so that he shouldn't have a problem developing faster than Darnold did. So I don't think it was a bad move. I think they made necessary moves. I am surprised that they went as offensive heavy as early as they did. But I think given how quickly rookie quarterbacks need to progress in this league now, like you already see Darnold, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz shipped off after only 3 or 4 years. You need to surround them with weapons. You need to give the quarterback the best opportunities to succeed. And I think Joe Douglas and the Jets have tried to do that, and we'll see what happens in 2021.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. I mean, my personal take is I thought the Jets had a good draft, but it's really going to come down to one thing, Zach Wilson. That's really what all these guys are great. O linemen, D linemen, receivers, tight ends, right? All these exciting nice players. It comes down to Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson is Sam Darnold 2.0, I think the Jets may storm the Palace and they may burn down the stadium. I think, if they miss on this guy, like you said, a lot of people are talking about Trey Lance. A lot of people are talking about Justin Fields. Justin Fields slipped to the Bears. There was a lot of miscommunication going on there. Some people were concerned about health and some of the seizures and some other avenues that came in. But yeah, I mean, you made a lot of great points. Elijah Tucker, that was a good pick, but I thought it was a little strange because they traded back up for that. Is that right?
Yeah, they gave up both their third-round picks to move 9 spots from 23 to 14 to make sure they got Vera Tucker. It was a lot relative to like the Jimmy Johnson draft trade analysis point scale. It was probably more than they should have, especially given the offensive linemen that were available at the 23rd pick. But I think the Jets went out looking for a zone blocking lineman. Rex Hogan said that before the draft. That's what they were looking for. Elijah Vera Tucker was the best one, so they made sure that they got him. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He basically, the left side of the offensive line with him and Mekhi back then will be locked down. They'll run as much as they can behind those two all the live long day. I'm personally fine with the trade. I think they could have they could have acquired more players. They could have gotten a fine player at 23 and 2 great players in the third round. But I think for the most part, they made the moves necessary to get the best players that they thought would fit their offense.
Let's get Allison's take as an outsider, because obviously Tyler's going to be more rose-colored glasses. Let's hear it, Allison. What is your take on what the Jets did? Were you high on Zach Wilson, the offensive lineman Tucker? What was your overall take? Just I know you didn't probably said it as details Tyler did, but what's your just Zach Wilson and the take of the Jets?
Right. Yeah. I sort of felt like the whole entire draft class of quarterbacks was overvalued. Maybe we're not gonna know for another year or two, maybe 3, depending on who your friends are. But I do sort of feel like the Jets needed. Don't get me wrong, the Jets needed a quarterback. I don't know that Zach Wilson was the right one, especially given his injury history.
Oh, but Tyler, don't listen to this. Don't listen to this, Tyler. Tyler's about ready to go buck wild right now because he was with Zach Wilson. When we first had him on, he was with Zach Wilson before it was really officially Zach Wilson, because it was almost like the next day or 2 days later where the Jets were like, we're taking Zach Wilson. No matter what happens, it's the apocalypse. We're taking Zach Wilson. And I was like, Tyler was right. So you're Allison, you're not the long flowing hair and his cool moves. You don't like all that, because that's all I've been hearing about Zach Wilson. I've never heard them, besides Trevor Lawrence, they're obsessed with these guys' hair more than anything else, more than their football skills, it seems like. You weren't enamored with that?
He has some nice hair, that's for sure.
The feathery bangs and all that. So
I don't know if it's going to be the answer that the Jets are looking for, but hopefully they are.
Cam, do you want to weigh in on this?
No, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I was happy the Jets took Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson's going to be a great player. And I also want to thank the Jets because they moved up to 14, where the Saints were trying to move up to draft Mac Jones. So thank you for jumping up to 14 and blocking the Saints. So I'm happy with that. But the Jets overall, I think they are doing with Zach Wilson what they did. The Panthers did more to help Sam Darnold in this draft than the Jets did in 3 years with Sam Darnold. So they're helping out Zach Wilson as much as they can. And like Tyler said, if Zach Wilson fails, it won't be the Jets front office's fault.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the chart right here. We've got Zach Wilson, of course, at a BYU, Elijah Tucker, offensive guard, Elijah Moore, another talented receiver, and then, of course, Michael Carter. And then the rest of the guys are pretty good. You really can't get too enamored, in my opinion, with 5th and 6th round picks. I mean, one team is going to get lucky. They're going to get a guy that's going to contribute. Let's get back to Allison's team, the Steelers. Now, I love, as you know, Najee Harris. I love this guy. This guy was one of my favorite running backs. He was big. He was strong, athletic. I don't hate running backs. A lot of people hate running backs. They've got this disdain for first-round running backs. So, Allison, you said it in your mock draft. I think everybody said it. I love the pick. When it came down to pulling the trigger, did you feel good about it, or what was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they needed to do it. They obviously need a starting caliber running back, and I feel like any position taken outside of the first round, almost, you wonder, hey, is it actually going to work out? So I feel like the reason why they took a running back in the first round is because of that. They say, hey, if we would have waited until the 3rd round and our run game wasn't as good as everybody wants it to be, or that the Rooney's expect it to be, well, that's why. It's because you didn't wait. You waited until the 3rd round. So, but that also goes to show, is it going to be the Steelers running back or the Steelers line? Obviously, they addressed 2 very important positions of need, with Kendrick Green at center and the offensive tackle, Dan Moore. But it's just a matter of, is the line going to be able to be as good as Najee needs as a rookie? Sometimes, that's it's not as easy as a translation from the collegiate level to the pros. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that actually plays out as we would like it to, that he's going to have a good season and that the offensive line is going to gel and everybody's going to be happy. But, it's going to be definitely a process, I think, for Najee. But again, I don't think that they should have gone with any other position besides running back in the first round.
Yeah, I think it's one of those rare times where their biggest need, arguably at running back, meets the value and checks every other box and everything else. Now, I got to ask you, you said you were not thrilled with this quarterback class, and many people are saying this is one of the better quarterback classes in a long time. So does that mean you weren't big on Trevor Lawrence either, who's been basically the number one pick for 4 years now, 5 years practically?
I just sort of feel like in general, quarterbacks are, it's funny because that's the position that you need the most in order for a team to have success. But at the same time, I think we can go back and look at several draft classes, and the quarterbacks that win in the first round usually don't pan out to be first round talent, if I'm saying that correctly.
Right. Rosen, Haskins, right.
Right. You're concerned about the risk. There's what Tyler was talking about, and Tyler made a great point with the offensive linemen. I mean, to my theory is you got to load up the offense, regardless of what the guy's name is. Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson. You got to load up the offensive line, because if not, he's just going to get absolutely steamrolled like Derek Carr did many years ago, and some of these other guys. Joe Burrow got. I mean, I'm worried about Joe Burrow. So his knee looks jacked up. So now I want to ask, was there any team, guys, outside of your team that you really liked? Because I looked at the research. There was 3 teams that got an A. The Broncos got an A, the Dolphins got an A, and the Vikings got an A. So Tyler, I'll start with you if you want to get too deep on any of that, or another team that you thought had a great draft kind of outside of your team if you saw other teams.
I think one of the teams was the one that Cam mentioned, the Panthers. I think they sold into the idea of Sam Darnold, and they sold into the idea of feeding him talent. So they got him a lot of playmakers. Like they got Chuba Hubbard late, who's like a really good running back late in the draft. They got a tight end for him. They already have a lot of skill position players. They got him offensive linemen. They're making sure the defense is good. So they're building a team around Darnold to make him successful. So I think the Panthers did a really good job. I also think the Lions did a really good job, a team that is not anywhere close to competing. They could have, at number 7, taken a quarterback. They could have taken Justin Fields. They could have taken Mac Jones. They could have taken a wide receiver that they actually need. Instead, they went smart. They went with Sewell. They went with the offensive tackle. They went for the offensive line to make sure that if they decide to go with Jared Goff long-term, they have structure there. Or if they decide to go get another quarterback either next year or better or something like that. So I think those 2 teams played the smart draft based upon the futures that they possibly have, rather than trying to create a future out of nothing.
Let's get Jess in here. Jess, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I'm a little bit late.
It's all good. No worries. We've got our Arizona Cardinals guy. So let's get right into it. Everybody gave their take. Some people love their picks. Some people don't love the picks. What was your take on your guy? You guys got a linebacker / some think he might be an edge rusher. I believe you guys got a B+, according to B to B+ to a lot of the rankings, Pro Football Focus and some of the others. As a fan and as a guy that covers a team, did you feel overall pretty good about the Cardinals, or are you just enraged? Like, what are these guys doing? So what is kind of your initial thoughts?
It was fine. That was kind of my takeaway, because there wasn't the choice to do what I felt would have been an A+ draft. The players that I really thought were to fit were all gone by the 10th pick, and that have been, the 3 top receivers. Jamar Chase, I never thought he was going to be even close, but the fact that either Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith could have fallen down to 16, or one of the cornerbacks in Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn. If any of those 4 is available at 16, it's a home run draft. I love it. After that, I would have rather – now, I like Collins, and I think he'll be a really good player. I think he'll be a Pro Bowl-type player, and the potential of having Collins with Isaiah Simmons there in the middle of the field gives you 5 to 10 years potentially of elite linebacker play. If you look at kind of the duos that we've seen in the NFC West with Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, I think it has that sort of potential impact. I gave the pick a B because – I think he's a guy, although the Patriots told the Cardinals if Mac Jones hadn't been there, they would have drafted Collins. And so, in my opinion, if they would have if they would have traded back a few picks, picked up a third round, that's an A pick. You get Collins and you get a day 2 or day 3 pick that they didn't have before because they didn't have a third or fourth rounder originally. And I think you come away from that first round being really pleased. Personally, given the players that were left on the board, if I had made the pick, I'd have gone with Najee Harris. I think he's a home run in terms of a prospect. I think he's going to be great. He's a really special running back. I get why they didn't, but he would have been my pick because the Cardinals, their bread and butter is supposed to be their offense. They do have 2 running backs this year that they can go with, in James Conner and Chase Edmonds, but they're both free agents after this. And sure, adding Najee Harris would seem like a luxury, but to have him under contract for the next 3 years after that as a bell cow, special type running back, I think would have been really impactful. I have no problem with the Collins pick. I would have preferred Najee, but it's neither here nor there. I think he's a great fit. I was worried about the pick a little bit because the problem is that this is now what their 5th linebacker in the top 50 that they've taken since 2013. Their 5th off the ball linebacker. And so they keep using these premium picks on non-premium positions. And I get why they did it last year. Simmons is an amazing talent and the things that he can do. I am less worried now. So that's just kind of nitpicking a little bit. Steve Keim keeps trying to fill the linebacker position with top picks, and it just hasn't worked out. The one thing I was worried about, because I had heard, I knew the Cardinals had interest in Collins, and he really fits the profile of the type of players they do. But what I kept hearing from other people, not your mainstream media, is that the Cardinals really liked his pass rushing ability off the edge. And I was like, no, he himself said that's probably not the best use for him in the pro day. He's willing to do it, and he has the skill set, but he'd rather run and cover, run and tackle. And we don't need the Cardinals going for the 4th time in the last 7 years of drafting a player and then playing him in a different position than he played in college. Dalen Buchanan played safety in college, moved him to linebacker. Hassan Reddick played defensive end, moved him off the ball until this last year. We moved him to the edge where he finally had a good year. He's a really tall linebacker. He's 6'5.5". He's enormous.
Huge. And he's really, some thinks he might be 6'6". Let's do this, Jesse. Great points. I want to go kind of to Alice and get her back in here with Mac Jones, because she seems to have some strong opinions about the quarterback. So I would love to hear, and Cam is just salivating. So you might, if you have to go for the kick-out punch and say Mac Jones sucks, that wouldn't hurt my feelings. Now Cam might feel differently. So the 5th quarterback taken, Cam was slobbered all over himself with Mac Jones. What is your thought? Now, he doesn't have the athleticism and some of the other attributes that the other guys. He's more of kind of I'll just throw out a guy, a Matt Ryan, a very kind of, I don't want to say boring, but more of a sturdy kind of a guy. What is your thoughts on Mac Jones? Do you think he can be a top-level quarterback, or are you just not with him?
Well, it's going to be interesting because he doesn't seem like he's as comfortable getting out of the pocket as all the other quarterbacks in the first round are. So it seemed pretty interesting that, he was, because that's what the league is coming down to, are these mobile quarterbacks. But he definitely fits, I think, what the Patriots are trying to do. So in terms of, it was a smart pick if they were going to go with quarterback in the first round. So I do like that the Patriots went with him. But okay. I don't know that I would. Again, I wouldn't have drafted a quarterback in the first round in general.
I thought you were going to blast him and call him a statue and can't move or anything like that, because that's what I've been hearing. People are obsessed with these guys with their shirts off. They showed him, ESPN showed him and Tom Brady with their shirts off. I mean, I don't know what this new thing that ESPN's done. I don't know what angle they're going here, but they're going a very interesting angle about Mac Jones. He did not have the physique that they wanted. So, Zach, let's circle you. Cam, we'll get to you. I know you're excited. You want to talk about Mac Jones, and you can't control yourself. Tyler, do you have a strong opinion on Mac Jones? Do you think he has the potential to do well, like the top 2 guys that everybody's raving about?
If there was any coach to turn Mac Jones into a good quarterback, it was either Bill Belichick or Sean Payton. And those are the 2 guys that were looking for him. Or Kyle Shanahan, but obviously that would have been a terrible choice. Look, Mac Jones was one of the most efficient quarterbacks of college football last year. He is the stereotypical, prototypical pocket passer type guy. Efficient, can throw in the middle of the field. He's going to be a guy that you're not going to build an offense around like you would like a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield. He's going to be a guy that you have to sort of insulate, provide with weapons, give a good offensive line. Like he had what? He had the Heisman Trophy winner last year. He had 2 top 15 wide receivers, a first-round running back. He had an entire offensive line that pretty much got drafted. He had everything he needed to in Alabama to be successful, and he was. He's going to need that in the NFL as well. He could easily get that in New England eventually, and I don't really see any reason why. I agree with Allison's point, though. I think quarterback is such a weird position because you're not going to get a generational guy anymore. Even Andrew Luck, who was the generational player, retired because they didn't build an offensive line around him. We're never going to get a quarterback like that again. Look at 2018. Everyone thought that was like the quarterback class. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are the best guys, and they were the last 2 taken of the 5. It's
Correct.
a crapshoot. You basically need to build a good team and have good coaching, or else it doesn't even matter who you have. Andrew Luck didn't matter. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota were like supposed to be like the next great thing. They both are on different teams. Same thing with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. It's all about coaching. It's all about the offensive line.
Those are great takes. Great point. I agree. I think you got to get these young guys offensive line. Cam, you're beating down the door here. Let's go ahead and hear your take on Mac Jones. He's going to make the Patriots great again. Is that they're going to go back to winning 14 games again? Let's hear it.
No, they're not going to go back to winning 14 games again. Look, I like the pick. I do, because they absolutely needed to address the long-term needed quarterback. Cam Newton's not the answer. We saw that last year. They brought him back for this year, but he's not going to be here long-term. I like the fact they made the pick. What I don't like, however, is the Brady comparisons. And you compare anyone to
because
Brady.
Because of their shirts? Because of them taking the shirts off? Or because
No, that's not what I'm talking. I wish I had bought it today. I saw it today when I was out. The Boston Herald, the front cover of the sports page was Mac Jones and a big thing of Brady behind him, like looking down at him. Like,
you're setting him up to fail.
Exactly. It's like, like if you compare anybody to Brady or to Jordan or to Tiger or to Gretzky, you're setting the person up to fail epically. Like no one's Brady. No one will ever be Brady. Like that's what worries me. Everyone's comparing him to Brady up here. He's going to feel a ton of pressure, and he's not going to play this year. He'll still be behind Cam, at least to start the year. But I like the pick overall because there was a need, and I think Mac Jones fits the system well. But I do have my concerns that all these comparisons are going to get in his head.
Tyler made a great point. I mean, Mac Jones is in the right system. He's got 2 of the better tight ends in the league. They just added several good receivers. They got a good offensive line, good running game. Many people expect the Patriots defense to come back. So it does look like the Patriots, for the people that hate the Patriots, it does look like the Patriots are doing all the right things. Let's get Jess back in here. There you go. She can throw up. There you go. She's going to throw up. Yeah. I think you're the only one holding the Patriots flag there. But let's get Jess with Mac Jones. Do you like Mac Jones, or just from a quarterback standpoint in the system, or what are your thoughts on that?
As a top 15 pick, as a first round pick, I really question it. You look at it. Let's look at his college career. You look at Nick Saban's system. If you're good as a freshman, guess what? You play. Okay. Nick Saban never counted on Mac Jones. He sat behind Jalen Hurts. He sat behind Tua. And finally, when he didn't have either one of those guys, that's when he starts. And so skill set wise, I mean, he's smart. He's accurate. But the arm talent isn't there. And when a first round quarterback, you want him to check all the boxes. I'm not saying he won't be successful, especially if you're comparing to Tom Brady. Here's the thing. Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady until well into his career. What Tom Brady did, he had a perfect team around him. And he was not asked to do a whole lot, but he was effective in the things. So he was super competitive. He worked super hard, and he was effective in the things he was asked to. He didn't become otherworldly until well into his career.
When he got Randy Moss, right.
Right. And then he had kind of unlocked, and so he had the physical tools to begin with, and as those started to wane, that's when he unlocked the secrets of youth, and the mental side of the game and everything else. And if you start off, I mean, I think like if the 49ers were potentially looking at Mac Jones I thought you were getting a Jimmy Garoppolo clone, who's a nice quarterback, but if you draft a quarterback in the top 15, you don't just want an okay quarterback. You want one you can build your team around. He still has some of the same limitations as Jimmy Garoppolo. He's smart, he's accurate, and so you can win with him. But if you're trying to build a team around him, you're going to have a guy with limitations. And he might be a very fine quarterback, and Bill Belichick loved Jimmy Garoppolo, and in the right system, he can be successful. But I think if you're going to draft a quarterback that high, you want someone who has the arm strength, to make all the throws, and to have an adequate athletic. I'm not saying he needs to be like those other guys, but in most other drafts, he's a second or third round pick, I think.
You want a game changer,
like Jimmy Garoppolo,
right? You want a game changer at quarterback. Absolutely. Let's get Allison back in here. Do you want to branch off that or add to that?
No, I think he said it very, very nicely.
All right, let's do this before we wrap this up. A couple minutes ago, go ahead, Cam.
I want to ask Allison one thing. Are you surprised
she hates Mac Jones? She hates him. She wants to.
No, she hates the Patriots. All right, she's the Steelers. The Patriots and Steelers have had quite the battles over the years. I get it. I'm
going to shank him in the alley if she sees Mac Jones. No.
What I wanted to ask Allison, are you at all surprised you guys didn't go a Trask or a Mills or a Mond in the second round at quarterback?
No, because I think that they're. So I know that they don't really have much, behind Ben Roethlisberger. So
what? Mason Rudolph's not the future?
No. Dwayne Haskins might be. Now, I just sort of feel like, despite everything I said about quarterbacks and going in round one, I honestly feel like that's eventually what they're going to have to do. They're not going to be able to draft a quarterback after the first round and expect him to come in and be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. I think the only way that's going to happen is if they draft a quarterback in the first round. And
you have to trade up for them.
Right. Yeah, well, exactly.
History says you've got to beat Boffle, so you have to have the number one pick, or you have to trade up to get him. And that's how that works.
Mahomes,
in the pros to get the quarterback.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think I read the other day that of all the starting quarterbacks in Week 17 last year, with the exception of Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott wasn't starting. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and Jimmy Garoppolo. He wasn't starting either. What am I saying? They were all top.
I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying?
Most of the starting quarterbacks in the league were picks in the top 2 rounds. It's very rare quarterbacks come from the 3rd round or later anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were trying to get at, we've done this exercise really over the last 18 to 20 years. There's only been 2 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, rounds 4 or later. Outside of Brady. We all know about Brady in the 6th round, but the last basically 17, 18 years, we have They're all first or second round. First and second round picks, a couple guys 3rd round picks. So most of these great quarterbacks are top 2 rounds. It's very, and you look at Dak Prescott with Dallas. Tyler talked about that. They had a great O-line. They had a great running back. They had all the pieces around him. And Kirk Cousins was another one of these guys. He just kind of hops around on all these teams. He's like an assassin, comes in, gets 40 million, 35 million, and then leaves the teams. So I got to ask, what did you guys think about I don't know if you guys followed the Bucks, but I was pretty happy with the Bucks pick. Joe Tryon, another 6'6", 260-pound edge rusher. He looked really good. Offensive tackle / offensive guard, Notre Dame in the 3rd round. Jalen Darden, kick returner in the 4th round. I thought it was okay. I wasn't enamored when they traded up for him. And then, of course, the 2nd round, Kyle Trask. I think it's worth a flyer. He's kind of in the Mac Jones category, that he needs a lot of guys as well, not really athletic. A lot of the teams are going towards athletic. So, Allison, do you have an overall take on that? Going with, again, another older quarterback. A lot of people, like Cam said, thought Steelers, another older quarterback, 2nd or 3rd round, might go with a quarterback, the next guy up.
I was surprised that they that they went with quarterback in the second round, because that's a high pick, and for a guy who, they're not certain whether it's gonna work out or not.
Well, that's a team that, where do you go? Because none of the guys that they brought literally everyone back from their championship team,
and they added Gio Bernard.
And so they're bringing everyone back, and so why not take a flyer on a guy? I will say, if there's one player that Bruce Arians will absolutely love, it's Jalen Darden, because he is fast, and BA has had a career of taking later round receivers and making them great, or having them become great. BA is they talk about Bruce Arians as the quarterback whisperer. He's really, really underrated as a receiver whisperer, because the guys he's had success with, excluding Tom Brady, have all been top 10 picks who have big arms and all the physical talents. And it's not hard to be successful with those guys when you got Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Palmer, Andrew Luck. That's going without saying. He's really good with the receivers. And if you look at how, in part of why Tampa Bay was so good last year, especially in the Super Bowl, it was the pass rush. By getting a guy like Joe Tryon, you're adding to that pass rush so you keep adding that relentless pressure that allows you to do things defensively that Todd Bowles loves to do. He's one of the best defensive coordinators, I think, in all of football. And you add pressure, and adding pressure, that's what's they found it. And what we saw when the Chiefs won it, their pressure defensively was the difference as well against San Francisco. Tampa Bay's pressure made it impossible for Mahomes to continue, while Kansas City could not do anything to Tom Brady. And so, you get a quarterback. Bruce Arians has always been one to bring in a quarterback every year. Bill Belichick did it for years. And so, he's an insurance policy. You see what you've got, and then maybe he turns into something. And that's about what you do. You rank your quarterbacks, and especially if he's a guy who doesn't need to perform now, but can step in a year or two or three, because Tom Brady's going to play till, I think he's going to have they're going to replace parts, and he's going to play till he's completely cyborg.
I love it. I agree with everything Jess is saying. I love it. I couldn't be happier. The wide receiver whisperer, the sprinkled dust, and all the excitement.
Well, just look at last Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson in the playoffs. Those low round picks just came out and contributed.
Yeah, and I think what you hit on this too with Darden. He's quick, he's dynamic. He is going to be a lot in special teams, kick return, punt return. He'll be in the receiver mix. They use him on some gadget plays. So yeah, I think that's great. So we appreciate everybody's time. We don't want to tie you up all night. The last thing I want to get from you guys, Devonta Smith, who many people love, Heisman Trophy, checks every box. He went third, and I try to tell this to a lot of people. I said it would not surprise me if he went third. I know people don't want to talk about the physique. He was super, super skinny. So he's tall at 6'1.5", barely 171 pounds. Allison, I'll go to you first. Were you shocked that he was the third receiver off the board, or is that par for the course?
It seemed like, I think it was par for the course, pretty much. I don't really think that it would have gone. I wasn't surprised that that's what happened.
Okay.
Neither was I. You get Jamar Chase, who really checks every box. And then you've got, basically, it's just, what flavor do you like more? Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. And here's the thing. Devonta Smith is an outlier. And so if you are going to bet on him, you are betting on an outlier physically. Jalen Waddle checks all the other boxes in terms of frame and speed and all of that. And so he's easier to bet on with the top 10 pick. You're betting on Devonta Smith, who was weighed, I think 166 is what he basically weighed in as. And you have very few examples of players like that who succeed. And so it doesn't surprise me, especially Waddle was the guy they were talking about entering last year before he got hurt. And so Devonta, obviously he took off and had the huge year, but that in part, he doesn't have that same year if Waddle's healthy all year because of that. And so the physical the physical difference is he's an outlier, and you don't want to bet too often on outliers because as outliers go, they don't happen real often.
Right.
It was the reunion draft. Chase is back with Burrow. Smith is back with Hurts, and Waddle's back with Tua. It was the reunion draft.
That's what Kyler Murray wanted last year, and the Cardinals didn't go get CD.
So before we go, real quick, 30 seconds each of you. Lance to San Fran, Fields to Chicago. Just your quick thoughts. Allison, you can go first.
Yeah, Fields. I guess I was surprised that he, went to the Bears, but I'm happy for him, I guess. And then what was the other one?
Lance
to San
Trey
Fran.
Lance for the 49ers.
Yeah. I mean, I think I feel like that's the quarterback that they wanted because they went through a lot to get him. So, yes.
Well, and I secretly, as the Cardinals fan in me, I wish they'd have drafted Mac Jones. But Trey Lance, honestly, Trey Lance checks every box. I think it was on this show when Kyle Madsen talked about the fit and skill set, because everyone talked about Mac Jones as kind of the perfect quarterback, when Trey Lance is the one who's been running pro concepts under center play action, which is what Kyle Shanahan does. He really is a perfect fit for their offense. It's just a matter of, does the inexperience hurt him, and will he be able to achieve a ceiling?
But he's got to play. He's played 17 games in 3 years. He's got to play some football.
Right. That's the question mark. Is he going to be able to unlock with this little experience? I mean, Kyler Murray, he didn't have many starts. Now, he was on the roster for longer. He played a little bit his freshman year, but he didn't have many starts, and he's doing fine. I'm good with Kyler.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best comparison is not Trey Lance to, they want to name Tom Brady or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Probably Kyler Murray is probably Trey Lance's ceiling in many people's eyes versus, an elite Patrick Mahomes or one of these kind of – I mean, he could be, but Trey Lance has not played a lot of football, and the conference he played in was a really not a top-tier conference. So that's really what it comes down to. If Trey Lance comes out and plays great, then in the future, a lot more teams, I suspect, are going to take more of these gambles in these lower-tier divisions. Anything else you guys want to add before we we're out? And we appreciate you guys' time and coming on.
I think Lance is going to take some lumps. If he's going to play early, he's going to be playing in the best division of football. Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. We really appreciate you calling in, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. All right. Last thing we're going to say, Cam, we're going to wrap this up with you. I've got to it was a great take by everybody, so we appreciate that. Absolutely. So, Cam, we had a lot to cover. Before we wrap this up, I want to talk about my Buckeyes. I've talked about it briefly. Joe Tryon, outside linebacker out of Washington, 6'6", 260 pounds. I absolutely love the pick with the edge rusher. Allison talked about this. A couple of the guys talked about this with Kyle Trask. On some instances, I was shocked they chose a quarterback in the second round.
It makes sense.
Yes, we are ready-made, as a lot of people feel we can repeat, we can dominate. But
you can go 20-0.
It makes sense. You're right. We can go 20-0. Nobody's ever, it's funny you say that because everybody was talking about the Patriots. They went 18-0. The goal is to go 19-0. Now it's 20-0. And do I think that's realistic? No, it could happen because I do feel our team is stacked. I know Jess feels that they're the best team, best division in football. They are a good team. Of course, he's talking about the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Rams. They are a great division. The Cardinals are on the way up. I actually agree with what you were saying that the Cardinals are on the upswing with a lot of the linebackers and edge rushers they have. But so quickly, Kyle Trask, second round, quarterback out of Florida. He's a big, huge guy, 6'5", 240 pounds. He's not an athletic 240 like Josh Allen. He's not chunky, but he's just kind of a big, stocky, kind of a 240, 242-pound guy. Robert Hainsley, he's the guy that I absolutely love. He's an offensive guard in the third round, a big, huge guard. He's smart, cerebral, and he's going to be a guy that, he could start at guard. He potentially could start at guard, right guard, early on, out of the gate. That's how they feel about him. Jalen Darden. I love what Jess said about the Bucks. I love what he said about the receiver whisperer. I absolutely love that. I think that's great. And then the rest of the guys, KJ Britt's going to special teams, Chris Wilcox, say that 10 times fast, a corner, defensive back out of BYU. He was a team captain for a 7th-round pick, a potential bubble guy. And your 6th or 7th-round picks, for those that don't know, yes, are your bubble guys. To make the roster, I think is great. So, Cam, any thoughts on that? before we get to wrap it up with your Patriots?
You guys are the team to beat. There's no one on the Buccaneers level. You brought back all your starters. You're loaded everywhere. The Trask pick to me makes perfect sense. He comes in, he sits behind Brady for 2 years while Brady rounds out his career. You guys probably win at least one more Super Bowl, if not 2, and then the reins go over to him. And Brady is, I'm sure, look, when the Patriots drafted Garoppolo, he was upset because Brady felt he had 7 or 8 years left, and he was right, obviously. Brady knows now his time is running out. He has 2 or 3 years left at an absolute max.
Right. Even if, as Jess said, jokingly, even if Brady plays till 50-51, which is crazy that I'm even saying that, but the fact that he's 43 is going to be 44, yes, Brady has to be realistic. Even if Brady thinks he can play 2 or 3 more seasons, he has to be realistic at this stage of the game. And if he wants to sign with whoever, Pittsburgh in 2 or 3 years or whatever the team is, Green Bay, wouldn't that be funny? We've gone 42, almost 45 minutes. We've not even talked about the biggest story, which is Green Bay. And this is a good time to give my grades. I know a lot of people gave the Packers. I saw some B minuses. I'm giving the Packers an F minus for this year, and I'm giving them an F minus for last year. So this is the only team. I know many people felt the Raiders did the worst job. The Raiders did do the worst job as far as drafting actual players, the actual guys they drafted. I'm giving the Packers, the Green Bay Packers, an F minus for this year and an F minus for this year. Their overall handling of Aaron Rodgers. They have a once-in-a-generational talent, and they've pissed all over it. There's no nice way of saying it. They've just pissed all over Aaron Rodgers. They have totally ruined this situation. So Cam,
they should trade him. Look, I mean, with these situations, the damage is done. Here's my thing with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You were clearly setting up to move on after this year. You weren't guaranteeing his contract. You weren't extending him. You were greasing the skids for this to be his final year in Green Bay.
Yes.
So why not just do it a year early? If the rumor is true, if the reporting is true that the Niners offered Garoppolo on the 3rd pick to Green Bay for Rodgers and they didn't take it, that Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy and those guys should be fired.
I agree. And you saw this when I tweeted you earlier, when I messaged you earlier, and I put it out there to the ether. The Packers, this just shows they live in 1955.
They still think they're the greatest team in the league, yeah.
They were upset that the 49ers and this team, they were upset that all the teams that they talked to, the top beat writer for each of these teams, got it out on their platforms, social media. They were legitimately upset that that the whole world knows now. Of course. What do they think this is? Vince Lombardi? A seal here and a seal here? Look, I'm getting tweets galore right now. Stories and coming through right now. Guys, Pro Football Talk, Bleacher Report, things are coming in right now as we're live on the air. So for them to try to pretend like they didn't know, they honestly thought they were going to draft a 1st and a 2nd round pick. They were going to trade up huge collateral,
for Jordan Love,
for Jordan Love. And that somehow a guy that won the MVP and is in the MVP in the NFC Championship game for the last 2 years in a row was not going to get upset. They're delusional. It's Green Bay. Nobody wants to go to Green Bay. Nobody.
Well, look all the free agents they've gotten. They've had to grossly overpay all of them.
All of them. Even the few defensive guys they got, which we've talked about. Okay, I know they drafted Jay Alexander, they drafted Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and all the Smiths and all the Prestons and all the great guys. They grossly overpaid for those guys, and I like those guys. Not just because they have my name. They're talented players. They're good players. They're 11, 12, 13 sack guys, 8, 9. They're all great players. Any team would love to have those. Tampa Bay, Baltimore, whoever the team, the Chiefs. But they've overpaid for those guys. Nobody that is young, in their prime, middle to late 20s, that is a thoroughbred superstar, wants to go to Green Bay.
You're going to force them there. You have to draft them or trade for them.
You have to draft them or trade for them or overly pay for them.
And they have no choice.
They have no choice. We're gonna end it with this. Javon Walker in 2002
the last
time they've drafted a receiver or a skill position, which includes tight end or running back, in the 1st round. What is Green Bay doing?
I don't know.
What are they doing?
The fact that Jordan Love is their only offensive pick under Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, 1st round offensive pick, excuse me. Here's what I would do. For some reason, it feels like Denver's the leader in the clubhouse here. You know, our guy John Heath isn't with us tonight.
What do you mean Denver's the leader? You mean as far as they got the A+ grade?
No, Denver is the team that everyone thinks they're the betting favorite if Rodgers.
I got you. Okay, yeah, because by the way, there was 3 teams that was given an A or an A+ grade. We'll get back to that. The Broncos, the Dolphins, and the Vikings.
Correct.
I would agree that the Dolphins got an A. The Vikings, I do not give the Vikings an A. I know that a lot of people like Christian Darrisaw. I do too. I don't like their A. The Vikings got technically a B+ or an A, but not a real A. What do I mean by that? They checked boxes on the guys that they drafted, but they still drafted a 10-win team. They didn't draft for a 14-15 team. That's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is what the Patriots did. The Patriots drafted, to me, the Patriots are an A, to me. They drafted Mac Jones, which was brilliant. I know people don't like his sand dollar nipples and some of the other weird takes that I've heard on Twitter about Mac Jones and a cigar. He's not chubby, but he doesn't have the ripped physique that everybody's got this new thing with the quarterbacks have to have ripped physiques. Look, Tom Brady's in great shape, but he doesn't have the ripped physique that some of these other guys have. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the ripped, even though he's in great shape, doesn't have the ripped physique that some of these other guys have. And they're the 2 best quarterbacks. You could throw Patrick Mahomes in there as well.
Josh Allen. Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't like what the Vikings. The Vikings don't have juice. When you look at teams that win, you got to have juice. What does that mean? You got to have dynamic edge rushers. You got to have explosive receivers. You got to have elite quarterbacks, elite players. They just drafted a bunch of pretty solid guys. They didn't screw it up, but the Vikings have always done that. The Vikings have always drafted pretty solid guys. They got guys that are okay, or they got a bunch of Bs. I'm sorry. If you draft 7 Bs, you don't get an A. Right. I would rather do what the Patriots did or what the Bucks did. Joe Tyron, he's an A. Okay. Robert Hansen, he's an A. You could say Kyle Trask, is he an A? Maybe he's a C. Okay, but you're swinging for the fence.
It's a worthwhile shot.
Your kick returner, maybe he's an A, maybe he's a C. But you're taking home run. You have to take some swings at some point in time. The Patriots did what I loved. They took swings. Mac Jones, maybe Mac Jones is a 7 or 8 time Pro Bowler, and maybe he doesn't. But that's a good swing. That's a guy that was worth the risk. Christian Barmore is one of my favorite picks in this draft. I don't care what anybody said. You could have made an argument. The Patriots could have taken Barmore at 15, and it would have been well worth it. Now, they were smart because they traded up for Barmore in the 2nd round. He was the first defensive tackle taken in this draft.
And he's exactly what they want.
And he's exactly what they want. Much like what the Steelers did with Najee Harris, okay, drafting 24th overall to the Steelers, that fit a need as well. I love what the Patriots did. Christian Barmore is 6'5". He's 311 pounds. I know you're bored Greg Bedard on. We're going to have to get Bedard on in the next couple of weeks because he hated Christian Barmore. There's rumors that he's lazy. There's rumors that he has character problems.
He didn't like trading up for him. He didn't mind the pick. If they had taken him where they originally were in the 2nd round, he said he would have been okay with it.
That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. You drafted the best defense. What do they have? 43 overall? Just threw my pen down. I got so. What was it? 43, 44? What was that? What do you have?
Let's see. That
would be, it up? Let's not guess.
That would be 47.
You're talking about if your argument is that 46 players are better than Christian Barmore, I'm telling you, you're wrong. That is not the case. He worked out with Warren Sapp over a month ago. Warren Sapp blasted him. You know why Warren Sapp blasted him? Because Warren Sapp was a great player. Warren Sapp's no longer a great player. Okay, because he's old and he's retired. And he was embarrassed that Christian Barmore didn't do everything he said to the T, and he dominated. All I know is he played 3 years or more for Nick Saban, and he dominated, and there was no problems. Okay, so yes, I heard rumors that maybe he was late to practice. Let me help. And they're like, oh, and the other take was, and I heard your boy say this, that he wasn't the smartest guy. Listen, I'm going to say this as nice and as delicate as I can. My defensive tackles, my defensive ends, my edge rushers, my corners, my safeties. I don't need a valedictorian. I don't need a Wonderlic 49 out of 50 Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't need Magnum Cum Laude. When I'm hiring a D tackle, when I sign a D tackle, this is the play we're running. Do you see the guy with the ball? Tackle him. You see the quarterback? Sack him. That's what I need. Okay. Are there going to be times here or there? It would be great if my D tackle picked up, knew the play that was current? Sure, that'd be great. At the end of the day, I don't need a cerebral assassin, Cam. What are your thoughts before we wrap this
up? I agree. I love the Barmore pick. I love the Patriots. I love the Patriots draft as a whole. I think they address needs. They got their quarterback. They got They're not. I'm not going to say they're in win now mode because they're not. They're in the transition.
They are. The Patriots are in win now mode. When you spend $200 million, Robert Kraft is not this Green Bay Packers fantasy of 3 years from now. That's not coming. Let me tell you about fantasies. When you build for a fantasy pipe dream in 3 years, typically you get punched in the face. This is football. Football is win now and win tomorrow. That's the way football is. I love what the Patriots did. Who are the guys they got in the other rounds?
They draft. I got to pull it back up here. Give me 1 second.
Well, it's okay. We'll move on if you don't have it. But here is what I'll say: this with the Broncos got an A. I know people love Patrick Surtain. I like Patrick Surtain Jr. as well. He's a great player. Again, I ask you: is drafting one quarter and a bunch of other pretty good guys, does that help Drew Lock?
No, it doesn't.
Did they get him? So they drafted a running back, I believe, Javonte Williams, who's pretty good. That does help. At the end of the day, the Broncos need more playmakers. I know when I did our mock draft, I gave him Jalen Waddle. I know the Broncos didn't like it. Many other guys didn't like it. I said he is going to go before Devonta Smith. I love Jamar Chase would have helped him out. Obviously, that wasn't realistic. Jalen Waddle didn't fall to them, so neither one of those guys fell to them. But those were both dynamic players. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, the Broncos are not going to win 11 or 12 games with this roster, in my opinion. It's not going to happen.
No, they're not. That's why they need to trade for Aaron Rodgers. They need to do what they did with Peyton Manning,
right?
Bring in a veteran quarterback at the end of his career for a 3 or 4 year run,
right?
Trade for him. This is my proposal. I think this makes sense for both sides. Aaron Rodgers to Denver. He goes back to where his new fiance, Shailene Woodley, is from. She's from that area. That's why the Broncos are on the list. Drew Lock, Noah Fant, the tight end, and a first-round pick back to Green Bay. Drew Lock plays this year for the Packers, and then next year the Packers decide whether or not they want to move forward with him or Jordan Love. And then Rodgers plays in Denver and finishes his career there. I think that makes sense for both sides.
It does make sense for both sides, but that's what a smart team would do. Unfortunately, if I am a team, if I am Denver, if I am, let's name, I'm just throwing out Arizona. I know they have Kyler Murray. I'm just throwing out teams here. Cincinnati, okay, maybe Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow. I'm throwing out crazy teams. I know it's not realistic. I'm just throwing out teams here. I'm simply saying the Packers have shot themselves in the foot. If you know what I'm talking about, they have shot themselves in the foot here. They have butchered this situation exactly the way Houston has. Houston has butchered the situation. I almost think Green Bay should trade with Houston. That both teams are going down the wrong road. They might as well just say, we screwed up, you screwed up. Let's just trade our screw-ups together. Okay?
No,
because
that was actually a proposal.
Deshaun Watson has blown up in Houston because he's gone down the way wrong road. He's got serious legal problems. And Aaron Rodgers is talking about, doing crazy things and going to jeopardy for a year. So
Tony Maz, who we've had on this program before from Felger Maz, said that yesterday, that he thinks the trade is Rodgers to Houston, Watson to Green Bay.
Yes, you have to. You have to. Now, granted, Houston doesn't have the talent because they've butchered that with Hopkins and all the guys.
They're going to be the worst team in the league. They're going to be the worst team in the league.
Houston and Philly. I know Philly.
Houston and Detroit.
Devonta Smith.
Detroit.
I know Philly drafted Devonta Smith. And by the way, I agree with everything Jess says. Jess does a great job as an analyst and breaking things down. Allison did a great job too, but Jess really does a great job. He talked about the quarterback whisper. He talked about the receiver whisper. I agree. Some reports said at 171. Some reports said about 160, below 170, 166, 167, which I read those same reports.
They better
I got to be honest, man. And this is what I'm telling you. This is what Marvin Harrison's 186 pounds. Marvin Harrison's 20 pounds heavier. This is my point. Isaac Bruce, there's been two before Smith. There's been two great skinny receivers, Isaac Bruce and Marvin Harrison. They're both 185 pounds.
And they had Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner, not Jalen Hurts.
So they're both an inch shorter and 20 pounds. They're 20 pounds heavier, and they played 10, 15 years ago in a more physical, dynamic league. So like
I just said, they had two Hall of Famers throwing them the ball.
They had two Hall of Famers. Look, I'm sorry, Jalen Hurts doesn't scare anybody. Jalen Hurts was beat out by Tua, who was kind of treading water in Miami. So the jury is out on Philly. Philly is going the wrong way. I'm just simply saying.
But Detroit will be worse.
Well, I don't think so. I actually think Philly's going to be worse. I know because Jared Goff is better than Jalen Hurts. You want a hot take? Jared Goff is better than Hurts. So last thing I'll say, I want to end it with this with 2 minutes to go. The team that a lot of people are not really focusing on that had a great draft. To me, a team that I like better is the Chargers. They drafted Rashawn Slater, a dominant offensive tackle, a left tackle. They filled the need. They also drafted Asante Samuel, who's another guy that I love. Asante Samuel Jr. This was the draft for the juniors. J.C. Horn Jr., his dad, he was not a junior, but his dad was, obviously a great player. Patrick Surtain Jr., and then, of course, Asante Samuel Jr. I love what the Chargers did. They gave the left tackle, which is what they need. A lot of people loved that the Bengals drafted a dynamic receiver in Chase. They did not draft Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell went to Detroit, did he not?
Yes. And that's going to bite since they need to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, all these teams begin and end with the offensive line, but my favorite draft was Dallas. I think that they addressed a lot of needs on their defense was so bad last year. I really liked what Dallas did.
I agree with you. I would love to disagree with you, but I got to be honest. I love what they did as well. So yeah, real quick with Denver, Patrick Surtain Jr. They drafted Javonte Williams, another dynamic running back, and then they also drafted another good guard. Quinn Minich is a good guard. Let's end this with Dallas. Because didn't you say Skip Bayless, what Buck Wilder, he hated Dallas?
Gave him a C-.
He does that. This is my problem with Skip Bayless is sometimes Skip Bayless gives great analysts. He gives great breakdown. And then other times when he agrees.
Caught up in his feelings.
He gets caught up in his feelings. But the other thing he does, he just makes stuff up. He purposely disagrees with the team that he likes just to create drama, just for drama purposes. He does it for drama because nobody that has a brain thinks that Dallas had a bad draft. Nobody thinks that because we're going to break this down. We're not going to bring up the whole thing.
This is consistent in his behalf because he did say for months leading the draft that Micah Parsons was the most overrated player in the draft. So this is consistent on his behalf.
Well, okay, he can be consistent. Well, you know what? He said a lot of other things that were not true. He didn't think that highly of LeBron James. He's one of the all-time greatest players.
He still doesn't.
Right. So let me just say this. I'm about to go hoarse here because all the yelling and screaming here. So Micah Parsons, who I love, inside linebacker, big, strong, checks every box. Kelvin Joseph, a great corner in the second round, who fell. Osa Odi, a big D tackle in the third round, who was one of the top 5 D tackles. They also drafted Golston, who's a big defensive end, explosive defensive end, Adebayo, who's good. They also drafted another corner, and a guy that I absolutely love is Jabril Cox, who is an inside linebacker, who you could say was a 4th-round pick. He also fell. So you got Micah Parsons, who's dynamic linebacker. You drafted Jabril Cox, a couple other corners. This draft could very well drag up Dallas's 31-32 overall defense into the 17-18, at least in the top 20. I mean, I'm just saying.
If Dak stays healthy, they're the best team in that division.
Yeah, without a doubt, they're the best team. So you're talking about all the things that they've done. I love what Tampa Bay did. I love what Dallas did. I got to say, I want to end this with this. So I didn't go too deep in this with Allison. I let her kind of give her take on her team.
I want to ask you, what was the most surprising pick?
Well, we're going to get to that. But with Pittsburgh, Najee Harris running back, I love that. Pat Freese, tight end, they would have been better off drafted offensive tackle. They did handle their tackle needs later in the 4th. They also drafted a center in the 3rd round, which was a good pick, and then they drafted a couple linebackers later. So last thing, what's your last thing before we wrap this up? But what was the biggest surprise you said?
Surprising to me, it was Travis Etienne to Jacksonville.
That, I don't hate that move. I don't hate it, but I see why because I don't hate running backs. I see why they did it. They have
Jacksonville
James
had so
Robinson.
many bigger needs, right?
You're right. Jacksonville did have bigger needs. So I know why they did it. They did it because
again, it was the draft of reunions. It's another one.
They did a reunion. They did a reunion tour with Lawrence and with Travis Etienne. I know why they did it. He is explosive. He is dynamic. I know a lot of people are going to get twisted up about it, but I don't have a problem with that. That doesn't bother me at all. Look, the only thing I could care less about Jacksonville's defense. Their defense sucks. That doesn't bother me. They gotta load up this offensive line. Our guy James Johnson for the Jaguars wire. I suggested it. I suggested they could draft another running back. He said they're not going to do that. He said I hate it. They're not going to do that. I said, guys, people don't want to hear this. James Robinson's a solid player, but he's not. He's solid. He's not great. I said that. Travis Etienne is a special kind of player. Is a dynamic player and a home run player. So I know a lot of people were mock drafting. Where's James Robinson going to get traded to? Look, if Jacksonville can solidify their team with offensive linemen, continue to sign a couple more guys, I know they got Cam Robinson. Shore up their offensive line. Last thing to answer your question, to me, the biggest shocker in this draft was Justin Fields to Chicago. That was the biggest shocker because nobody had that coming. Nobody had that coming. Like and subscribe to this channel. Let's get the retweets out. That was my biggest shocker of the draft was Justin Fields to the Bears. I hope it works out. I don't think it will. And the reason I say that, it's not because I don't like Justin Fields. I do like Justin Fields. And I agree with Allison. I'm not enamored with Zach Wilson either. I don't want to crush our guy Tyler. I know he's got his hopes up with this guy. They're going to have to run the ball a lot. I think Justin Fields is going to struggle because they don't have a great offensive line in Chicago. They don't have great receivers. They don't have great tight ends.
With Matt Nagy.
They don't have – well, I have no problem with Matt. You don't like Matt Nagy?
I'm just asking you.
Oh, I like Matt Nagy just fine. What I don't love is I don't love their offensive line. I don't love the receivers. I don't love the running backs. I don't love anything else about their offense.
They have one receiver, right.
Allen Robinson, right?
Yep.
Who is slow as dirt.
He has great hands. Right.
Great. So he's great.
He's the anti-John Ross.
Right. I would rather have Allen Robinson than John Ross. You're right.
Yes.
One guy's 4.2, 4.3, can't catch. He's got hands of stone. The other guy runs a 4.7. So, yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Like and subscribe to the channel. Great show. Thanks again.
Thank you.